Sometimes you have to realize that the brokenness that you experience is not just for a bad experience. It's usually for a purpose. And I know that that's hard to hear because it doesn't look anything that you ever thought it would. Your life looks different. People see you differently. You feel differently about yourself. And maybe there was a time in your life where you felt like you were strong, the professional person and all of these things. And then all of a sudden, something happens and it feels like someone yanks the rug right from underneath you. It's like that sometimes. But what I want to say to you is this, that the issue can't stop you. And I have a reason for this particular live. I tried to do it as a short, but it was just too much for me to share. So first I want to say it's Yadita, Faith Yadita Span. And I see a lot of new followers here, and I want to thank you for the follows. I want to thank those of you who have been here for a bit for your follows and for being here as well. I am here to serve. I'm here to serve, but I'm not here to serve from a space of so called being perfect. Only God is that. I'm actually here to talk from a place of authenticity. I want to crush the belief that believers, Christians, kingdom people have to have a perfect life in order to be accepted or worth it or valued. That is not even the Bible. And if we look at the people who went on before us, they went through some very serious things. If you look at Hebrews, very serious things just because of their love for God. Well, you're going to go through some things too if you love the Lord, and I certainly have as well. And that's the reason for this talk. I know that some of you have been receiving some of the links, some of the fundraiser links. Some of you have seen it. You've seen it on Facebook. You've seen people posting it. Maybe you saw that GoFundMe link that was on, where was it? It was on LinkedIn. And I had to take it down because there were so many scammers and different things like that. But it wasn't until months later that a friend of mine called me. And I want to say that sometimes you go through a valley experience. And I'm also going to tell you about this outfit that I put on for this particular live. Sometimes you'll see me with a t-shirt that says "Don't Give Up" because my book is called "Don't Give Up," or you might see "Empowered" because it's important for us to reach into the power source, which is God. And so I put that up, and I remember being in prayer because if you've been going through a difficult season, if you feel like you have been walking through the valley of the shadow of death, like the word of God says, and you're just like, why me? And maybe you're looking online and you see other people, the highlights and the reels, and those people who are doing really, really well. And then you see some other people who are in their cars, they're in hotels, they're still showing up, or maybe there are moms that you see who are even asking for help because they need to get diapers or food for their children or whatever it is. And I want to talk about those things. I'm also an advocate and a spokesperson, a spokeswoman. And I remember when I lived in New York where there was someone at an organization who was being so disrespectful to the people that were there. And that kind of stuff touches my heart. I love to say it as my baby girl. She says, I stand for justice. And we're in a time where the Lord was talking to me about justice for the vulnerable over and over and over again. And then he started to highlight the scripture of the Good Samaritan and also Matthew 25, starting around 31, where he's separating the sheep from the goats. And he started to share with me that my story and what I have gone through is bigger than me. He said, it's bigger than you. It's bigger than your daughter. But he also said, do not worry. I will take care of you. And what that looks like for someone, it's different for each person, how God takes care of you. But he also tells us not to worry. And maybe you're in a space right now where you're worrying because you don't see it. You don't see how the bill is going to get paid. You don't see much of anything. And you're looking and you're waiting. And I'm saying to you, do not worry and don't give up. So maybe you saw my story on Unfiltered Stories, and I have it up on the screen right there. I told my story. There were so many people who kept saying, your life, you need to do a movie, you need to do something, document, you just need to. Yes, there was a time when my Hallmark felt like a Lifetime drama. And that's on Unfiltered Stories. I don't want to go into that too much today, but I will say this. When a person goes through that moment where maybe they were in that marriage or that relationship or what have you, and they find out that just about everything that that person told them was not truth, it can be devastating. And I went through that. But what I found out as I was going through it and I had to face the reality of the pain was that God did not want me to allow the trauma to stop me. I never thought that I was going to be raising a child without the other parent. I never thought that things were going to be fake that I found out about. And I still had to keep going. I found out on a Saturday and I still got up and I went to work. I called my boss and I was just like, oh my gosh, right? It was one phone call and a dear friend of mine was there and I almost collapsed in Harlem on the street when I found out the truth. And it was like, whoa, how could something like this happen to me? And then I started to say, how could it not happen to me? Who am I? Am I exempt from suffering? Well, that's not the life of a child of God. Because I know that he says, take up your cross and follow me. I know that he says, many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivers them out of them all. I remember the moments where I was weeping on the hotel floor and I kept hearing the name Hannah because I had Peninas who were laughing, who were ridiculing, and I forgive them. And that hurt too. And I just remember losing things, and some of us have lost some items in the midst of the wilderness. My favorite gold pair of shoes, my favorite outfits. There were things that he was even taking out of the home, and I don't know who he gave it to, but who cares, right? Gone is gone. It doesn't matter. So the thing is that I had to keep going. And I know that some of you probably did not and do not understand what it feels like for a person who's used to being in a professional space, a person who's used to being in spaces where they're speaking or they're singing or they're using the gifts of God, and then they go through that wilderness season. And it's almost like it's a season of hiddenness, a season where nothing looks like what you thought it would. I never expected even to be in a hotel, but here we are. And so, can I say I'm grateful? You better believe that I do, that I praise God for it. But there was something that was so hard for me. And people started to call me out on it. There was a pastor, I'll never forget this, being in a particular hotel because my daughter, because of what we're managing as far as her health, and I don't want to go too much into that because the Lord will heal in his timing. And so I needed to make sure that she was in a space where she wasn't around a whole lot of people. And I had to literally, by faith, when he said, I'm going to take care of you, I had to literally, by faith, say, Lord, you will. And I had to go through some things that some people know nothing about. And I had to wait on the Lord and I had to humble myself sometimes. And even after being in Winston, where thought we had the right place, and the people just lied. It's going to be beautiful, they said. It's going to have an amazing backsplash. Listen, I didn't even know what a backsplash was, but I found out it's like, what is it? In the kitchen when they make it real pretty and stuff. But on my move-in date, after relocating, nothing was done. And a gentleman, the door was open after I signed the lease, and he walked in behind me. He said, ma'am, nobody told me that you were moving in. Nobody told me. And it was absolutely disgusting. Disgusting. And I went and I said, pull the stove out because of what I saw. And I saw gaping holes. I walked over to the closet the same. I walked up the dirty stairs because there was carpet on the stairs and there were a group of people in one of the rooms just up there chilling out, just chilling out. And I was like, absolutely not. We're not moving in here. And I went back to the office and I said, and my friend, she was my daughter's principal. She had already moved from New York, one of my best friends. And we were going to do business together. But it didn't happen because of all the craziness. And I was like, we can't move in there. And so they said, put her in the model apartment. First they said, break your lease. They thought it was funny. Break your lease. And I found out later that they said they had looked me up on LinkedIn and they called their friends. It was like, oh, she's a motivational speaker. I heard they make lots of money. Okay, well, I don't yet. AI is out there even telling the fib saying I'm a multimillionaire. Well, I should be one, but I am not yet. So, and you should be one too. So all of that happens and they put us in the model and I smelled something in the model apartment and I'm like, what is that? And I later found out after almost taking my last breath 2 times that there was black mold. It wasn't just that. I hired an environmental inspector and he said, you have 8 different types of mold in here. And the mold was coming out the vent. It looked a lot like cotton. It was so thick. And then he took me into, it's like a little boiler room. We don't have that stuff in New York. At least I didn't. In that brownstone we lived in, he opened it up and he said, this is here. Look, this is where this is coming from. And it was so unbelievable. And I had to get out of there. That was the first time I had to get out of there. And so sometimes you will see people going into the hotel, the car, and you're not going to understand why. And you're going to look at them like some people did with me and said, she doesn't look like she needs any help. I'm not helping her, right? Not knowing that there are other things that people are going through and they're so embarrassed to ask for help. It's almost like we feel ashamed because there's a part of us that's saying, I should not even be here. I should be at a different space. And so I put on this outfit today because I wore this about a week ago. And when I was invited to an event. And when I put the thing on, the little lanyard, there's my name. And I got a little pin, dropped my little butterfly. I got a pin and the pin said speaker. Before I even put it on, though, someone looked at me and took my hand. Oh, you're speaking today. And I said, oh, no, I'm not. I'm coming to listen. But it was a reminder to me that when I was in New York, I was speaking, I was doing and all these things. And it's like I came here and it was so much spiritual warfare, like the enemy just wanted to silence and shut me up. Don't sing anymore. Let her be over on the sideline. Warfare after warfare. And after that happened, the next thing I knew, I reached out to someone. And I want to say this, I got to say this to you. There are times in your life where you are going to feel, and I hope that you don't, but I know that it's happened to some of us, like your back is against the wall. And because you're going through that, you might end up reaching out to someone from your past because it seems like the best thing to do. And it's not. Or maybe God will use that situation to show you something. And I learned that the people who I thought were my friends were really not my friends. I discovered that people who saw that I wrote a book were not really excited about it. As a matter of fact, one person looked at me in the face with the meanest look as her mom stood behind her back because she had just lied about something. And the mom's behind her back laughing, and she's angry because of a lie that her mom told. And she takes her long nails. Are you gonna write another book? Well, I didn't just write another one because God gave me a gift to write. He gave me a gift to sing. So I wrote a few of them because I'm not going to get up to heaven and the Lord say to me, what did you do with the gifts that I gave you? And so I went through all of that and it was nothing to play with. And I found out that sometimes because people are not healed and the church doesn't teach people enough about defamation of character, they don't teach their church members enough about cyber stalking and cyberbullying. And so then I started to go through that. And it was not the nicest thing, the easiest thing. It just continued. And I didn't talk to people about it because if you look at Unfiltered Stories, from a little girl, I had to learn how to hide the pain, the shame. I didn't want to tell my mom because I loved her so much and I didn't want to get in trouble for certain things. And so I learned how to hide it, how to go through the pain by myself. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever done that, but I want you to break that silence. You don't have to go through things by yourself. You don't have to suffer in silence. I wrote a song called No More Silent Tears, and I'm going to share it with you. I really want to do it over. It's such a powerful song. And I remembered singing that song one night. There was a women's group, and I was like, I wrote a song today, and I told that was Mother Angel. I told her, and she said, "Well, sing it tonight." And by the time I got to the bridge that said, "No more, no more, no more silent tears," the women, and I was like, "Turn around to the woman next to you and tell her no more." The tears that were flowing. People who had held on to things for years were calling her the next day and saying, "I finally feel free. I let that go." The suffering that you and I experience is not in vain. Nothing. No, not the shame, not the embarrassment, not the smear campaigns that I've gone through, not the people who are even online putting up things that I recently heard about that I didn't even know was there, not the court document created by AI saying that I know a woman in Nesby. I never met a day in my life, and someone, I don't know if she won that court document from lying about that, but this is the strangeness and the things that we go through. And if Jesus was here, his Instagram and his Facebook would have people smearing him as well. So don't worry about that part. Be faithful. Be faithful. So, yeah, be faithful. Hold your head up and be faithful. Don't let a temporary circumstance cause you to lose it all because of people. So at that event, I had this on, and of course they were like, "Are you speaking?" And I was like, I'm not speaking. It was just what I needed. It was just what I needed because I'm used to networking and doing these things. But sometimes when you're going through a valley experience, you may feel like maybe I just shouldn't show up. Maybe I don't need to be in the room because there are so many other people who are doing so much better than I am. They're wealthy and I'm over here going through this situation where I can hear the Lord calling me by my name. Yedida means God's beloved, the Lord's darling and friend. And as I've been going through that journey, because remember, there's a period of time where Jesus was a lamb. The Bible says he was taken as a lamb to the slaughter, as a sheep before his shearers is dumb. So he openeth not his mouth. And there were times when they were accusing him, and he would just say, "Thou sayest." In other words, that's what you say about me. All right. He didn't defend himself. He didn't call the angels down. He didn't say, "Strike them." He didn't do any of those things. He humbled himself to the process, to the will of his Father. And we have to do the same. And there were times when I wanted to speak up and I wanted to say something. And I was like, "This is wrong," and all of this. And there were times when I could hear the Lord saying, "Do not speak. Do not say it. Do not open your mouth. Do not." And I had to humble myself to that. And you will too. And it doesn't mean that you're not right. It means that you don't have to defend yourself sometimes. Like the Lord is the one who is your defender, because if you do it your way, there's a consequence that you do not need to experience. You don't need to experience that. Do not do it that way. Even though you're right and you feel that anger, and you have people sometimes who are messing with you and messing with your child and all this stuff, and you're like, "I'm going to get you." And the Lord will. I felt God one time. It was like a cool breeze because I felt myself getting angry about how we were being treated. And it was like a cool, just the presence of the Lord. And I could hear him saying to me, "The enemy wants to put you and that woman, because he wants you to get so angry at her for what she's doing and what they're doing. And don't do it. Don't do it." And I humbled myself. I humbled myself many times. Listen to God when you're going through. So here's what I want to say. As I've been going through this journey, the Lord kept highlighting a scripture to me. Matthew 25, It's like 31 through 41, where he says the king brings the nations together and he has the sheep and the goats, the sheep on the right, the goats on the left. And he starts to speak and he starts to say, when I was in hunger, you fed me. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was in prison, you took me in. But I didn't say it in the right, but he's speaking this to them, right? He's saying this, I was hungry, you fed me. And they said to him after he spoke, but Lord, when did we see you in hunger? When did we see you naked and clothed? When did we see you a stranger and we took you in? When did we see these things? And he starts to tell them, when you did it unto the least of these, you did it unto me. And then he says to the sheep, go. Like basically go into the presence of his father, beautiful, beautiful. And then he starts to talk to the goats. And this is the biggest part of this message. This is the biggest part because God always uses a person. I remember the Lord had me ministering and helping some people like to break free from certain things last year, a couple of years, maybe 2 years ago. And I can remember where, I'm trying to remember what part because there was so much that was happening in the midst of that. And I can remember the Lord saying, I'm watching how people are treating you. I'm watching how they're treating you. So he would tell me, this is going to happen. This person's going to come. They're going to be angry. And I'm just like, and I had to put a smile on my face. A lot of my friends have said, how do you do it? We didn't even know you were going through all of that. How do you have a smile on your face? And even back when I started doing the coach, people were calling me saying, how are you so resilient? How are you? And I'm like, it's the grace of God. How do you walk by faith? How you're going, we know you're going, but we know you. And my beautiful friend said to me the other day, she said, I came to your home. I was in the brownstone with you. And people wanted, that apartment. It was beautiful. But when the Lord told me to get out of New York City in 2019, I knew I had to be obedient. He wasn't like, oh, it's time for you to leave. It was a command. And I had to give that up. And the reward was that my daughter had a neurological disorder. And out of that obedience, the Lord healed her from that, off the medication, everything. And then we went through something else. And it's like, okay, but I've been healed plenty of times before. I'm a miracle. So he can do what he's going to do because her testimony is hers and mine is mine. And he can do it. So your friends sometimes see you suffering. I'm talking about your real friends, not the friends who don't really like you, who get close enough to you so that they can hurt you, which is painful, but you have to forgive them. But my friend was saying that. I remember we went out to eat together and I saw you and, you were buying this, that, and the other and da-da-da. And I was giving to people who were in need and all these things. And then when I went through the wilderness season, there were two things that were hard. One was I didn't want to talk to people about it or tell them, just like before when I went through that situation of finding out that I had been duped. I didn't really want to talk to anyone. Who could I trust? I know who I could. And it was also this. And people were saying to me things like, put up a spot fund account. I didn't even know what a spot fund was. I had a good friend, Dr. Mans, tell me to do that. And I was just like, I really don't want to ask anybody for help. And then there was a pastor one time, and she said, you struggle with asking for help. Like, don't do that. Like, ask for help. And I was like, okay. She said, no, you're too sweet, you're too kind with it. Ask for help. And I was like, okay. And I had to learn, and I'm still learning, how to literally humble myself and do just that. And so the Spot Fund link is there because I know that there were some people who were putting it up. And like I said, as I was going through these things, and we had to make a quick move in December of last year because I found out that those people were not my friends. I found out that people prefer to listen to lies and smear campaigns, even though you treated them well. When the lie comes, people forget how you treated them. And that's the part, the lie becomes bigger than the truth. And we have to be very careful because the enemy loves division, and he's using a spirit of deception against his beloved, against his sons and his daughters. And people are looking at some of you because of the lie and the deception, and it's not of God. And instead of them using discernment, they're saying, well, let me Google, let me search them, let me investigate. And what they're seeing are the smear campaigns that your enemies are putting up on Google, instead of really seeking after the heart of God and saying, Lord, how do I help this person? I don't remember when people needed help looking at them and saying, let me Google it. I would just say, Lord, let me do it. If I went to my friend's house and they didn't, they were like, no, 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 don't come because it's, and I would say, no, I'm coming, and don't be embarrassed. And I would say to my friends, like, sit down. You got just, you relax because you're tired. That's why your space looks like this. You're going through a lot. Sit down. I'm going to just start and just tell me if you want this and this, and I'm going to, straighten this up for you, because that's what real friends do. That's what real friends do. So we went through all of that and more. And I did not call people when I was in the hospital with my daughter for over a month. I thank God that there was one woman who was in a book club that I was in. And I realized that she was in Raleigh at the time. And I just felt led to reach out to her. And her name is Mon. And I reached out to Mon, and I'm smiling because I thank God for her. And I told her that we were there in the hospital, and she came. And she bought a blanket for my daughter, and it had a scripture on it and all of that. And because it was like, I didn't have time to process. I was just standing as a mom in faith. And she gave me a bracelet, and it said, Daughter of the King. And when she just embraced me, I met her husband. I didn't get to meet her kids yet. But when she embraced me, that was like, I had a moment just to just let it go. Because sometimes we have to stand up and we have to be strong. But that's, our strength comes from God. In our weakness, his strength is made perfect. It's not me. And so each time somebody was saying, oh my gosh, you're so strong, I knew that it was because in the morning I would lay out before God, or kneel before him, or sit before him, or stand before him, and just say, Lord, I need you. I need your strength. I need you, Lord. I cannot do this by myself. And so people would see me online still encouraging, because I'm an encourager. And you have to be able to do what you do in season and out of season. Just when you're going through, unless the Lord tells you to be silent and to consecrate, stay over here, then you do that. But if he tells you to keep going, you keep showing up. And people were saying, gosh, your faith is increasing our faith. Well, that's what it's about. Corinthians talks about it best. The same measure that I received encouragement is the same way that I encourage others. The same way, not the perfect part. There is no perfect part. There's God. And so there were people who were showing up, and I was doing all kinds of things, especially for here. And we had to leave because what happened didn't even make sense. And all I could hear the Lord saying that morning was, get your stuff together and you and your daughter leave quickly, leave. And I was like, yes, Lord. And we left, and we came to the hotel, and that's where we've been. And I put up the spot front, and the lady said to me, yes, she said, somebody put up, do not give to it, because that's not your data begging for money. Don't give to it. I'm sure it's the same people. And I was like, wow. And then I went to the organizations, and I walked in the hot sun. I almost passed out a couple of times because I was like, Lord, this is what I know to do. I'm going to give my resume. I'm going to do that. And it was like, that's not it. That's not it. And I remember when that woman, same thing, oh, this apartment, come over here. Oh, come and work here. And the Lord, I could hear him saying no, because he knew that she was going to turn on me. And I forgive her. Lies are crazy. But I forgive her and I forgive her family. I do. They, that's the Lord's department. It doesn't matter. So just release the people that have hurt you. It's too much. It's too much for you to carry. And somebody needs to hear that. So I put it up. The organizations, one minute, oh yeah, we're going to help. We've got this and all of that. And then they wouldn't. So it was like, I'm telling the manager, yes, it's going to come today. Or there were people who were sending me screenshots of people who were like, yes, we're going to help. I got it. And then they wouldn't. And I was like, what's going on? I don't understand this. And the thing that I know is that sometimes it's God and sometimes it's the enemy. Sometimes there are destiny helpers that were supposed to help you, but because they did not see God, they saw Google that they did not. And it hurts and it hurt. But then it was like, no, the Lord just kept saying, calling me his beloved. It's so beautiful. It's beautiful, beautiful times with the Lord. So in case you saw the link and you wondered like what's going on and you had a lot of questions, when we keep asking people questions like that, we are re-traumatizing that individual. Because if you're in the hotel, you know that it's day by day, you got to pay. And so the Lord also, though, will sometimes give you a moment of grace, because this woman of God kept saying, like, there's going to be a performance. And that's what I kept hearing lately, that God is going to give a performance for all of the stuff that me and my daughter have gone through. It's going to be a performance of his glory and not mine, not hers, but the glory of God, to show the enemy, like he did with Job, that they meant it for evil, but God means it for good. Like he did with Joseph. They meant it for evil, but God means it for good. Job, you're going to get double for your trouble, but you got to forgive and release. And so I put the things there. This is it. This is it. And when I put this outfit on the other day, because I usually just have like, a t-shirt. Sometimes I'll, put on a nice shirt or whatever. All I could hear the Lord saying is like, tell the people that the circumstance that they're dealing with, that is not their identity, that your identity comes from God. And your identity actually happened before you were born, that God already knew you. He already knows you. And it's not what the people are saying. It's not what they're saying about your friends. If you're a good friend, I need you to go call your friends who people have been lying to you about and doing smear campaigns, and apologize to them. Because there's a price that's going to be paid for that type of stuff. And it is not a good one. Do not get caught up into the thing of believing that going to church on Sunday is it. If you have not charity, it profiteth you nothing. If you speak with the tongue of men and of angels and have not charity, it profited nothing. If we gave our bodies to be burned and have not charity, it profits us nothing. It profits nothing. It's like a tinkling brass cymbal if we don't love the way that God tells us to. And I pause because I want to make sure that I'm saying what he wants me to say. And I don't want to get caught up in my flesh, because when you go through like I have, and when you've watched your daughter and you watch people be mean-spirited, it does something to you. And so there are times when I have to pause, and when I go through the shame of being in the hotel and the Lord telling me, wait on the Lord and be of good courage. And I have to literally stand on faith in the face of people who are trying to figure out, what are you doing? Where is it? And I've tried this and I've got the text messages coming from people and it looks like a lie. And I'm going, I'm not a liar. I have integrity. And yet the Lord is still saying, stand by faith. It's not going to work the way that you think it should. What he did tell me, though, is like with the widow with the oil. I usually say the woman with the issue. The widow with the oil thought she had nothing. And she owed, just like many do. And she had that little bit of oil in her house and she thought it was nothing. And the man of God tells her to pour the oil. What I'm doing right now is I am pouring the oil. I've been crushed for the oil. Your anointing will cost you something. It will be embarrassing People are going to look at you. They're going to accuse you. They're going to say you're not doing anything. But if God is not going to use your resume, if God is not going to open the door for that, He's got something else that He wants you to do. And for me, he reminded me, you are a creative. You were one ever since you were a little girl. You sang, you wrote songs, you did this, you wrote poetry, you wrote books and all these things. And it's on your computer and you have it up in the shops that you created and you are not pushing it. You're not telling the people the value that you created in those things. Sometimes it's going to be the thing that you think seems like it doesn't make sense. Books. And you will have people looking at you. You ever those books that you're saying, I've had it. And I literally pulled back because of that. And it's like, no, because sometimes it's not going to change until you do the first thing that God told you to do. He told me to sell the books. So the link is there. I have multiple ones. I like apps and stuff. Payhip.com/AdidasFan. Payhip.com/AdidasFan. And then I have it also on don'tgiveup.gumroad.com. Because there are some people who wanted to gift Don't Give Up to people. You can do multiple copies on gumroad.com. Then, of course, when I start consulting and doing that, that's going to be on Pensight. But I'll put the links here for you. And when you see this video, because some of my friends are going to share this with you, and it's a little longer than I wanted it to be, but some of you have asked so many questions. And I literally, some days, it just felt like it was weighing on me because all the questions, and I was like, Lord, is that what they did in Matthew 25, 30, 31 through 41? Were they asking all that questions? Did the Good Samaritan see the person broken and going through? Would someone look at a mom and look at the link and see that you have a mom who's taking care of her child, who loves her daughter very much, who's got her own testimony, is amazing, and see that they're going through and they were in the hospital and literally look and say, she don't look like she's going through anything, like anything. May God have mercy upon your soul. Not in a mean way. We have to really get it together. The church, sometimes we're acting like the world in the way that we love. And I have to speak about it because there's coming a time where you are going to have to be in community like the book of Acts, where there was no need of anything because people were taking their resources and they were pulling it together. This nation has caused many to become very selfish. And when there is room at the end, and you see a mom, the Bible talks about the poor, the widow, and the fatherless, and the orphan. And when we see people going through these things, the Lord wants us to be mindful. My daughter, she won't always be one of the fatherless. She's got God as her dad. And I have him, the Lord, as my husbandman. And so that's about it. Go ahead and I'll be sharing more of the journey. And I know it's important because we are being called to another level of faith. And one thing about God, he uses people. Joseph is not here. Job is not here. Esther is not here. Deborah is not here. The woman with the issue is not here. All of these people, Moses is not here. But you're here. But I'm here. We are the ones who have gone through the process and the journey are the ones who have to speak up because there's a cry for justice also. There's a cry for justice for the vulnerable. And many of us who have been in that situation, it was not to embarrass you or to make you ashamed. It's bigger than you. And that's what the Lord said to me. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for giving a follow. And just realize that, yes, Jesus is soon to come. But he's giving us time to get the spots, the wrinkles, and the blemish out of ourselves. And the only way that we can really do that is to humble ourselves before the Lord. And yes, to love each other like the Lord told us to. All right. Thank you for watching. Click the link, share it, because, yeah, The hotel has to be paid. And I want to say this, when people make promises and stuff like that and say we're going to do it and don't do it, it continues to go up, 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 up. And it's not that the person is begging. Sometimes it is that the Lord is also looking to see how they're going to respond, if they're going to stand up by faith, but He's also looking at how people are treating His beloved. That's it. Thank you.